Ready? That's that. We are now at item number 1 on our calendar, House Bill 322.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second, and Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman White and I stand before you on a bill that, until this morning, was an important bill, but I think is one that most of us talked about in concept because of tragedies and evil acts that had occurred in other states. Today, it hit our community. We don't know the details yet of why anyone would go into a school and kill children. But I know this. I'm not leaving here this year. Do we do everything we can possibly do to help try to prevent that? This bill requires school security teams to do active shooter drills. This bill requires schools to keep their doors locked. This bill requires many things. You've all read it. It also provides for prevention through threat assessment teams. None of us know the details of what happened today. Not yet. I was asked at one point to consider rolling this bill, but I'm not wasting any more time between this bill and the House floor. I hope that you will support this bill today, and I hope that this will happen in a bipartisan manner. Those bullets that struck those kids today didn't have a partisan label on them. Those families are Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, and they are hurting. No one should ever go through what they're going through today. And I'll admit it's a little tough to present this bill right now, but I could not in good conscience slow down even 1 second on a bill that could save lives. Mr. Chairman, with that, I stand ready for questions.
Members, you've heard an explanation of the bill before us. I have one name on the list already. Representative Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an emotional time. We're going to be honest about that, Representative Lambert, and so I hope you understand the emotion with which I'm going to say my statement. You stated that we don't know why the shooting occurred. You say that we're going to do everything we can to stop these shootings from happening again and again and again, but we know how it occurred. And this legislation does nothing to address the root of these issues, which is the proliferation of military-grade weapons
Representative Jones,
in our communities.
Representative Jones,
If
you have a question on the bill, make your question known. We do not need pontification, sir.
We have a right to make a statement, and for my community,
No, sir, you have a right to ask questions. Now, if you have a question of the sponsor, please ask it. If you have a prologue to your question, you may certainly put the prologue on it, but make it related to the bill, please, sir.
This is a prologue related to the bill because this happened in Nashville, where I represent. And just 2 weeks ago, members on the other side of the aisle told me there's no such thing as gun violence when we challenge this proliferation of guns in our communities. Children, this is the only nation this keeps happening in. That is not a coincidence. And so my question to the sponsor is, what steps does this bill take to address this woman who committed this act of violence, of this atrocity, used 2 AK-47s? What is this bill doing to address the root of these issues?
You're recognized, sir.
Behind every one of those inanimate objects that I know you hate so much is an evil person that chooses to use it in an inappropriate way, just like a drunk driver behind the wheel of a 3,000-pound vehicle going down the road that creates havoc. I understand that you want to focus on the item used. I want to focus on things that will actually ensure the safety of our children, like making sure that doors are closed, like making sure that security guards have the training they need, that making sure that they have the threat assessments to make our schools the most hardened possible target against any form of violence, no matter what weapon may be utilized. You may focus on pretend solutions that sound good from partisan standpoints, and yes, today is an emotional day. These are real solutions that will make a difference, and this is a very difficult bill to present right now. I would like to say just thank you for your comments. We can get in a back and forth right now, but I hope anyways that while there may be other solutions you would like to focus on, that these solutions we can at least all agree on. That better training for security guards, better threat assessments against any school. If there's anyone anywhere on a social media site anywhere in the world that makes a threat or even a semi-threat against a school, it should be immediately investigated. We need personnel. We need individuals to be able to do that. These are real solutions. These are not made-up political fights where they're focused on an inanimate object. These are focusing on the evil individuals that are doing this. And again, I understand it is a difficult day for any of us to discuss this bill, but if we wait a week, if we wait a day, if we wait an hour, it is furthering endangering children in this state by not having these type of real solutions in place. So yes, sir, thank you for your comments. I would ask that we be careful not to get in just a back and forth today and over-politicize an absolutely tragic situation.
Representative Jones, follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not about politicizing. This is about treating the grief of our community seriously. What would your bill do to prevent Uvalde? What would your bill do to prevent today's mass shooting? Putting locks on doors, having more security, that would do nothing to address what is the root cause, which is this proliferation of military-grade weaponry in our schools. This does not happen in any other nation. Can you name any other nation where they keep having school shootings, Representative Lambert? Can you name any other Western nation that this happens in? Can you give me an example?
The chair will intervene here. Sweden is certainly one, sir. They've had a mass school shooting of a significant number. However, please address the bill, sir.
What would this bill do to address today's mass shooting? How would this bill have been a preventative measure to the act of callousness that happened in Nashville?
You recognize, sponsor.
This literally just happened. So as we go through this process, I'll be happy to answer that question at a later date. For today, what happened? I would recommend that we all grieve with these families, evaluate that situation when we know actual facts from the law enforcement officers that put themselves in danger to actually save lives today. So to ask that question today is entirely premature. But yes, I absolutely would love to have that discussion.
We'll come back to you. Representative Jones.
What would this bill do?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'll give you one last follow-up, then we'll go to Representative Johnson. I'm sorry.
Thank you. What would this bill have done to address the situation in Uvalde, where this is a response to the mass shooting of those children? They had security in the schools. They had locks. That was not enough. So how would this bill actually take seriously and address what happened a year ago, the same situation in another school?
You're recognized, sir.
Yes, sir, and thank you for asking that question. That is one that I can answer. So in that particular situation, there were multiple things that occurred, one of which was an unlocked exterior door. This requires all doors to be locked. It also includes that they must be checked on a regular basis. It includes threat assessments. It includes drills to ensure that, like what happened in Uvalde, when you have law enforcement officers that are on the scene that can go in, that they are trained to go in immediately and save lives. That's much of what this bill does, and it absolutely will save lives.
Representative Johnson, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess my question would be, I do believe that we need to have a plan, we need to have security in place, and we should make sure that everyone has a good plan, but I also believe that's probably one of the smallest things that we could do. I think that when it comes to addressing other issues in our community, making sure that people have access to affordable health care, which also means mental health care, and also making sure that we do what we can with common sense gun legislation. So what I would ask the sponsor, he is dedicated to this bill and making sure that we have school security plans in our schools, which I can agree with, but I hope that he is willing to work across the aisle for other things that we know and have been proven to save lives, that we also consider those options as we move forward.
Response, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you for your comments. And today we're focused on this bill, but I will say this, I've spent my entire adult career fighting against violence and trying to ensure that those very mental health options are available to everyone that needs them out there. And in this state, we have all voted for multiple different bills to make sure that it is available. Now, there is still more to do, and I hope that there is more that we will do, again, to ensure that every single instance where there is a threat from anyone who is either mentally deranged or bent on evil, that we get in front of that threat before it happens.
Last follow-up, Representative Jones.
Johnson.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry,
Mr. Chair.
Representative Johnson.
That's okay. Well, I just want to say we haven't done everything because expanding Medicaid would give that care to over 300,000 Tennesseans. So perhaps we should be thinking about that as well. Thank you.
Sorry, the chair did. We have people on the list. Would you like to withdraw that? I will. Representative Reedy, Vice Chairman Reedy, you're recognized.
Question on the bill.
Okay. We've had 2 calls for the question on the bill, but I have another name on the bill on the list here. Would you please withdraw? Representative Hakeem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Leader Lambert. I don't know, I guess I just am in a mood to make maybe a few people mad when I say that Leader Lambert and Representative Jones both, in my view, are correct in their perspectives. This is a day that we have to look at what is before us and respond to that. And I believe, indeed, the bill does that. If not in total, to some great degree. But also the reality is that the concerns expressed by Representative Jones, I don't know if we really take them serious enough to have a frank discussion. It has to be had, that discussion, because the reality is that people are continuing to die, and that indeed, are we looking at it through a political prism as opposed to what is in the best interest of our citizens? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think all of our hearts are heavy today and a little bit raw. So I apologize if this doesn't come out the right way. But Chairman Lambert, I hear what you're saying. I know we're focused on this legislation. I would simply ask, and I'd just like to recognize and acknowledge the fact that it's a shame that we have to have this level of precautionary, almost creating a fortress in our public schools. And what signal does that send to the children? I mean, we have to get together and look at the root causes of how we got to this point where we're trying to fortify our public schools. There's not a day that goes by that I don't walk my children, drop my older children off, or walk my youngest child up to the door of his elementary school and think about where his classroom is located and what the exit points and entrance points are and whether the door's locked, which they all are. You can't even get in the school. We can't even walk our children to our classroom because of the environment that has been created. And there is a climate of fear. And we are all, every one of us sitting up here is partially responsible for that. Because we have failed to act. We have failed to do what is necessary. And it has directly resulted in us having to fortify our public schools. And I would just ask, Mr. Leader, Mr. Chairman, everyone, if we can't work together and step back and really look at this issue, look at the root causes of this. Look at how we've gotten here. Why? The real cause. And I just want to say, to my fellow committee members, I don't appreciate you trying to cut off a conversation by calling the question. Just because a conversation is uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's unnecessary.
All right, sir.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask, can we please, I know this is sitting on the bill, work together to look at how we got to this point that makes this bill necessary. And I extend my arm out to anyone and hand out to anyone to work together to try to get to the point where we don't have to fortify our public schools. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Response, Mr. Sponsor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman, thank you for saying that, but I will say this. Until which time it comes that our streets are totally safe, until we have eradicated evil, until we have gotten to the bottom of every single circumstance where our children may be in danger at their schools, yes, sir, I will do everything within my ability, and I feel like all of us should do everything within our ability to fortify those very schools so that at least our children are safe at school, because today, obviously, they were not, and there is more that we should do. So I accept that hand, sir, and I'm open to any conversation you'd like to have or anybody would like to have on how to continue to make sure that our children are safe, because, again, today they were not, and that is unacceptable.
Thank you. Representative Hemmer, I'm sorry, down here. Representative Hemmer, you're recognized. On the bill, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, this bill does not do anything for private schools threat assessment. Is that correct?
You're recognized, Mr. Sponsor.
I'm extremely glad you asked that question. It does not yet. So I'm not able to amend this bill in this particular committee, but as far as I'm concerned, and I'm only speaking for me, I'm not speaking for the governor's office or my caucus at this juncture, but there was a hesitancy to extend this bill's protections to private schools. After today, I hope that is a conversation that we will all have, that whether it's a public school or private school, wherever that a child is learning, that that school should be safe as we can possibly make it. And so, as of right now, this affects public schools. But going forward, if this bill passes this committee, and I hope that it will, I would very much like to have that conversation as to how we can ensure that protections in this bill extend to private schools as well.
Before I recognize Representative Hemmer for a follow-up, a reminder, committee members, this bill is before us for rules. Representative Hemmer, you're recognized.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Sponsor. And I think after today, we unfortunately have to have that conversation and look forward to speaking about that later. Thank you.
Chairman Faison, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as the gentleman from Western Davidson County, I just want to remind him and the members here, we passed a bill a few weeks ago, I think the governor's about to sign it, that would allow private schools to partner with local law enforcement to be able to provide resource officers in the private schools.
Vice Chairman Reedy, you recognized. The question has been called. Any objections? Seeing none, we are voting on sending House Bill 322 to Calendar and Rules. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to Calendar and Rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
If you wish to be recorded as a nay, make sure you've got with the clerk.